Yeah, I'll see if I can't rile up both sides there.
Yeah, that's the key. Okay, well, Momo, look out here. All right, everybody, we are live. Here. Oh, hang on. Shoes have got to go off. Meg unsubscribed to me when she saw the shoes on the bed. But here we go. We're live. We got Cole, Xner, McHenry. Do you prefer Cole or Xner, or is it Crossner? By the way.
Oh, it is Xner,
Okay.
but I don't really care. Either one's cool with me. Uh, if you want to go with Cole, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. Well, just don't call him late for dinner, right?
That's right. I'm there on time.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us here. We are here laying it down with Big D, with Cole, Xner, McHenry. And how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. I had a nice little morning. Got some coffee in my system already, so looking forward to it. This is the first time I've been on camera since probably last frag, so it's been a while.
Okay, and that's actually where we met briefly. And you had the wicked idea that has inspired me for next time I go to Frag. Go with a mixed team, play some Counter Strike on LAN, and then cast the rest of the weekend.
Oh
How
yeah.
did you get what was your mixed team, and like who you were there with some pretty big names. Like how did you get involved with those guys, and how'd you guys decide to make a team together?
Yeah, it's a funny question there. Obviously, we went with no namers as our name. I was kind of disappointed in that name. I wanted to go with the exciting whites because I'm an Eagles fan. And their defense has a couple of white cornerbacks that are we call them the exciting whites because they're exciting. But yeah, we went with no namers, so it's funny you said big names. But I played with El Jacko with a couple of seasons, so that's one of them. I've played like a lot of ESEA League with him. I've got Seven Evan, who I'm currently playing with at the moment in Maine, so I play with him at the moment as well. Been playing with him for a long time. So just a couple of friends that are like Midwest CS people. Tryhard was there. I'm sure a lot of people know about him. He works with a chair company that was working with Frag. So a lot of really cool names, a lot of really cool people. Met a couple of cool people on that team. I wasn't familiar with Tactile or Tryhard, which are like two new people that I met with. So yeah, man, I think that's the way to do land, especially if you're kind of volunteering. It's nice to be able to have some fun, play some Counter Strike, but then also enjoy casting on land, which is always a blast, and helping out Frag, which is a good time as well.
Yeah, that was my first like arena event, and doing something offline and getting to hear your voice over the loudspeaker is kind of a wild experience as you're
Yeah.
shouting about Counter Strike. Not many people may know this, or maybe many people knew this, but I was doing just the tiniest bit of research about you last night, and it turns out you are the season 36 intermediate champion. Are you not?
Yes, I am. That's right. Yeah,
Let's
we
go.
took the belt home. They send you a trophy. I don't have it with me right now, but I always say they send you a trophy or a belt whenever you get a league championship. But yeah, we won season 36 back in like 2022, I think.
It's weird that's yeah, because we have 4 leagues per season. It's weird that it's only a couple years back like that, but it's all the way
Yeah,
back in season 36.
it feels like
Well,
forever ago.
these as a wise man once said, the years start coming and they don't stop coming.
Actually, it was 2021. I just looked it up, so it
Okay,
was a little longer than I thought.
still feels like just yesterday.
It does, yeah.
Um, well, so you mentioned you still play in Maine right now.
Mhm.
Um, what when did you start casting? Like what let's go back a little further than that, before that even. What
Yeah.
How did you get involved in Counter-Strike? Like what are your earliest memories of Counter-Strike?
So when I first got into Counter Strike, I used to play. The reason I got into Counter Strike was I used to play this Minecraft server where if you died on the Minecraft server, if you just died, whether it was fighting someone, whatever the case is, you'd get banned for 3 days, guaranteed. You'd have to pay $5 if you wanted to get back in early. but you got banned for 3 days. I didn't have the $5 to pay. This was back when I was like 13. Um, which I used to play that server. This is how I know Cryptic so well, or he plays for Nouns now. He used to play for Boss, but we used to play together back in the day, like in 2013. So I've known him for forever. But every time you would die in that server, a group of people who were dead would go and play Counter-Strike together. And obviously, Counter-Strike is a very hard game to get into. I think if you're first getting into it, you have to learn everything. You have to like figure out the mechanics. So I feel like some of my earliest memories are my group of people when I first got in. It was Matthew or Cryptic, one of them, who was uh, who was telling me he was not going to play with me until I figured out how to play the game first because I was so bad. So pretty much hit some DM servers up, tried to figure it out. I used War Owl actually, as many new people back in the day did, and figured out how to play the game. But yeah, probably like 2014 is when I first got into it, maybe 2013.
That you got into it the same time I did, except I was 24 years old already, and a little bit too old to be like. I still thought I was going to go pro if I played enough Counter Strike. Spoiler alert: never made it out of open, and that's fine. You can be bad at
Hey,
Counter
there's
Strike and
still
still
time.
enjoy it.
There's still time.
There's still time. Exactly.
You
There's
can
no.
still make it out of
I,
open.
I've been.
Never give up on that.
Okay, I lied. I made it out of open one time, but the
Okay.
guy that I played with didn't like me. And so 2 games into the intermediate season, when we were just losing
No.
like 13 or
Yeah.
16-1 or
Those
whatever.
first couple games are tough.
Yeah, he's like, "All right, you got to go." And I was like, "Okay, great." So back to open I went.
Oh,
Um
banished.
yeah. Well, okay, so how long were you playing Counter-Strike before you started playing competitively in open, and then how long were you in open in intermediate before you got to season 36?
So I did have like pro ambitions when I was like maybe 15 or 16. At that point, I had stopped playing, Minecraft and kind of transferred over into 2015, 2016 to just like full Counter-Strike. Like I was again in high school at the time, so my schedule was get off of school, play Counter-Strike until, 1 a.m. and then watch streams of like Stewie and the 10 mans back in the day until it was like 2. So that was kind of my schedule every day, trying to be pro. I was trying to make it through the pug ladder though, which I feel like was bad. Um, because I would just play, 10 pugs a day after school, right? Um, so that was kind of my first like dip into playing competitive Counter Strike, was just going through the motions of playing a lot of pugs, trying to meet people. I never played League though, so I spent a long time not playing League until like 2016. 2016 rolls around. I actually meet my now wife, but then girlfriend at the time. At the same time, like a couple months later, I start working at a job when I'm turned 16. So that kind of ended up taking up all my time. So I spent about a year or so trying to go pro when I was like 16 or so. Uh, and then completely stopped that whenever I met my girlfriend, now wife, and then got a job. So that was kind of the story there of the early days. I got back into Counter Strike in like 2020, um, and started playing. That was during COVID, and that's when I started casting as well.
So you started playing and casting. How did you what was the start of your casting career, and then I'll ask you about how you made the transition eventually to the pro league.
Um, so I started casting my friend. It was Cryptic's team again. I would just stream their matches because they would ask me to. I was kind of like not a coach, but I would just be watching their games as a sub. And then someone asked me to stream the games that I was watching of them playing, and then I would just kind of jokingly cast over their clips and stuff. And um, I wasn't like super serious. Like I would mostly just shit talk my friends that were playing. I wasn't like actually casting. But at the end of the like broadcast, they were like, okay, well, we actually really enjoy like listening to you. We enjoy watching you. Um, it feels like these are the type of people as well that, we shit talk each other all the time. And sometimes we do get serious with each other, but these were the type of friends that you're like kind of just going back and forth with. Um, and they were pretty serious and they were like, "Hey, you're actually pretty good at this. Maybe this is something you could look to do." And from that point forward, after they said that, I just immediately started putting my streams up. I would cast advance every day, 3 games a day, like just nonstop. Like this was full speed ahead. Once they said that, like I was like completely sold on the idea that okay, this is something I can do now. So that kind of gave me a foundation with the community, I think, where I was casting on my own Twitch, casting the best advanced games I could find. But if there wasn't any great advanced games, I would go down to like the bottom of advanced and then cast their games. Um, and I think people really liked it. I interviewed people after the games. I did all of that stuff, everything I could to like give myself a little extra edge. And I think I learned a lot just like kind of grinding out the cast. And I still like take that approach to my broadcasts. Is I work a lot of gigs. I constantly am working during the season. I'm casting all the time, so I feel like that was kind of the foundation. Was just a lot of advanced work that I started out with, to that consistent growth, to where people kind of recognized my name. People would suggest me because they knew I was casting their games. And as soon as I got my first paid gig, I got my first credit card pretty shortly after. Maybe this was a little bit after, but I maxed out my credit card buying this mic here and my mixer, and I got paid $80, the full price. If you know, the Shure SM7B and the Go XLR Mini are like 800. So I ended up spending a ton of money on that after I got my first. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. I ended up spending a ton of money on a bunch of, like, casting gear because I was like, "Okay, I'm getting paid. I'm gonna go even more into this," and it was probably an impulsive decision, but it was one of those risks where, it just had to pay out, otherwise I was kinda screwed, and eventually, it kinda did.
Yeah, I'd say. Well, so you grinded, you grinded, you grinded, you involved yourself in the community, cast as many games as you possibly can. I'm recapping for all you young casters that just want a brief recap on
Yeah.
the road to success. Do you think that the casting during COVID lent you the opportunity to have more time for that, or do you think that COVID played a factor into that, like all the remote work being available? Do you feel like that played a factor into it at all?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason had so much free time was I was working at UPS at the time. I was working the graveyard shift. I was also going to school, so I would work from, like, 11 p.m. to like 5 a.m. My classes would start at 10 a.m. So I would like stay in my car for a little bit until classes would start. Um, and then I would go straight to class. So that was pretty much my life, was constantly school or well, work and then school. And then I would go to, you know, uh, cast. And then COVID started, and this was like, okay, now I don't have to go to class. I actually ended up quitting UPS after that last semester as well because it was just too stressful. There's a ton of people. I was very nervous about COVID at the time, um, so I ended up leaving UPS as well, and it was just overwhelming. Working the graveyard shift is horrible, especially while you're going to school. So I ended up quitting UPS and getting like an easier to handle job, one that gave me a lot more, ability to work like extracurricular stuff, and that was kind of a big reason. If it wasn't for COVID, I would have still been having to go to school pretty much like full time, even more than that, because I was taking a lot of classes. And then beyond that, it was, the work situation. Not having to do the graveyard shift anymore was a big deal. So yeah, I would say COVID was a big reason as to why I was actually able to succeed in grinding so much.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously it paid off for you too, so it was a good decision no matter what. How did so I Fi is was your co-caster for a long time, right?
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
he? How did you get involved with him, and like when along your journey did you decide to like? How long were you doing solo casting, and then decided to find a duo?
So I pretty quickly got into like a duo cast. I started early in 2020 and in like my casting role. So crazy to think it's been 5 years, but early 2020 was when I first started, and then I sort of in the summertime. By then, I was working pretty much consistently with another person. That was the Canadian A, or Reggie. He's been out of the game for a little while, but he was always. I mean, he was very talented when he was casting. But that was my first ever like duo, and I pretty much like locked him in the summer. So we worked a lot together. Eventually, I saw Fi doing cash cups. I can't remember really when he got into the scene, but it wasn't too far after I started either. And this, 16-year-old, I just thought he had a great voice. I was watching him during the cash cups. And, I didn't really cast the cash cups as much. I was still very much so into the ECL advanced scene, casting that a lot, but I saw he was doing those cash cups on the weekend, and I'd just watch him, and then I was like, okay, this guy's really good. I know he's a hustler. He's grinding. I want to work with him, and so shot him a message and said, hey, let's do some cash cup sometime. Pretty much developed a plan. We set some goals, and eventually we were able to accomplish those goals. We got to cast our first, like, I remember this was probably 2022, 2021. We said we want to cast a Dream Hack, which then turned into Challenger. We got to do that with Challenger Atlanta in 2023, which was a great opportunity. So it was just cool that we got to like kind of work together, accomplish those goals together as well. And then now he's grinding on that YouTube and is killing it. So yeah, that's pretty much how we kind of developed and kind of worked together.
That's dope. Yeah, I mean it's really cool to see both like you guys work together for a while to achieve success, and now you guys are, I assume, still friends and good
Oh yeah.
good colleagues and would work together again. But now you're both doing your own thing and taking that success and running with it, which is I don't know. There's a lot of dark shit in the world, Cole, and it's nice to see something positive like that. Dog,
Yeah.
get out of the shot. The dog is really trying to involve himself on this. Okay, so you
Understandable.
got he's he's a he's a king. He deserves it. So you got to ESL Challenger Atlanta. I'm assuming that's where you started getting involved with ESL. How did you make the transition from like ECL to that offline LAN environment to you did Pro League 20, right? This last year?
Yes. Yeah.
And got to go to Malta for that?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, no, no. Sorry. That was in Philly. I worked with Mike. I live in Philly. Mike lives in Philly. So I went over to his apartment. So we did it remotely, but we were together,
Okay.
which was cool.
But still you got to work on that
Yeah.
big stage, and clearly that's gonna I'll ask you, how did you make that transition from Challenger Atlanta to getting through to EPL? And then the follow-up question to that is what's on the horizon for you this year, if you're
Um,
allowed to talk about it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, one second. So
Bless
far,
you.
thank you. So far, this that kind of jump isn't an easy one. It's kind of challenging to be able to get your first opportunities, especially, the NA card. Working out of North America, it's really hard to get those opportunities to, convince a TO that, hey, this is worth flying out a person from the US versus just getting someone, just as talented from the UK to make that difference. It's not easy. And that I think largely just requires some really good connections and good work, right? I think those are you've got to be able to accomplish those two. You've got to be able to make your connections and then impress when you get the opportunities. Um, and I fortunately have a really good connection um, with the guy that's working on both what I did last year in IEM Dallas and Pro League. So that was like a big deal, was being able to kind of get those. And then when you get that opportunity, this is a lot of times when you're casting, you can't control what's happening in the game. You can't control the moments that you're given. But both times I was casting a big S tier event that people would describe as like one of the mainstays of the year. That's usually like ESL's flagship for Pro League, or IEM Dallas, which was the biggest IEM, barring Cologne and Cato. Um, I was fortunate enough to have some really big moments. If you remember the Skulls and Buddha clip where they were in Dust 2 Long Doors, that clip is like it's all over Instagram. My friends are sending me these videos saying, "Look how funny the situation is," and it's just me casting with Mike. So when you get those big opportunities, you kind of got to be a little bit lucky, alongside, again, being ready for the moment. So if you remember Pro League when M80 was playing Fnatic, we get the longest CS2 game, both online and in LAN. So there's a really cool opportunity there where you get kind of blessed with these amazing opportunities, and then you get the craziest moments you can imagine. So that was a really good opportunity. That helped with getting a lot of eyeballs. Um, but yeah, that jump is not an easy one, because I think that more requires you to be able to build those connections, right? If you're getting an opportunity at a challenger, you've got to make such a good impression with your work, but probably be able to somehow make some sort of connection. And I don't really have a great answer to that. The way I made my connection was just becoming friends with someone that got promoted. So it was kind of again like a luck situation for those sort of connections where you just, I think if you're a good person, you're kind to everyone. I think it's very easy, but you do have to kind of prioritize that. And so, yeah, that's a big deal for sure.
I I know you've said several times that there's some luck involved, but I think what you said as well, your ability to network, your ability to grind, and then your ability to weave in kindness to others, and not kissing ass, but like genuinely being kind to other people and like taking an interest in what they do. You make
Mm.
those kinds of connections and you do stuff for others and they do stuff for you. That's just the way
Yeah,
the world works.
absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, just got to be there.
exactly. That's not unsimilar from what Darth Mike said when I had him on here as well. That uh, something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of luck is where hard work and opportunity meet. So you really
Mhm.
can create your own luck. So don't downplay your hard work too much, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my other principles. I mean, again, I feel like when I first started, part of my luck was working casting every day. I went on like a 60-day streak of like casting advanced to relegation to like online tournament that was like the RMR qualifier that was open IP at the time. So like that was definitely a principle. But yeah, Mike's someone I've learned a lot from. He's a great guy. So I really appreciate his input. I love the episode that he had, but no question, he's a good guy to learn from.
You heard it here first. Xner watched Laying It Down with Big D. That means
I
you need
did.
to as well. Yeah, now, did you like, comment, and subscribe? Now I'm going to put the spotlight
I
on you.
liked. I will comment and subscribe. I'll make sure to go
Okay.
back and comment
Okay, that's
and
one more
subscribe.
subscriber. You'll be, I think, 71 now. We're moving
Let's
up in
go.
the world here.
Let's go.
Okay, let's turn our attention back to Counter Strike, which is what we've been talking about, but focusing on your casting. How do you feel about this VR? How do you feel about this VRS system being implemented this year? And let's start
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I think there's gonna be a lot of growing pains. Everyone was I won't say that. There's a lot of people that were sad about the RMRs going away. I think Valve did a good job of kind of breaking down the sadness of RMRs going away by adding 8 more slots to the major. I think that was a really smart decision from them, making it 32 teams. Um, so there's some good and some bad. I think at the end of the day, it's going to take a long time for teams to kind of actually get right. I wish that the VRS could be going on for a little bit longer and that the ideas were changed a little bit, because at the end of last year, you're still seeing some kind of ideas of like, okay, partner teams are still invited to every event. So you're still seeing like the lingering effects of like the benefits of being a partner team versus now what we call the open circuit, which is still kind of getting to that point where it's actually an open circuit where teams that make it deep into runs are getting consistent invites. But it'll get there eventually. It's just going to take time for the VRS to kind of work itself out. And the good news is, as any sort of talent, um, sorry, as any sort
Bless
of
you.
talent, you're gonna see long term that there's just so many more events. Like if you look at the calendar, you kind of get excited. You're just salivating as a talent at my level, looking at all of these big events that are coming out with massive prize pools, and they're overlapping with each other, which means it's opportunity to take charge and make some moves. And I think that's something really exciting, a great opportunity. As hard as it is to get into this like talent space, it opens up opportunities when you see overlapping events. So that's really good news. But the VRS, no question, it's going to have some growing pains to start off.
This loops me back into the last question I forgot to ask again at the end of you talking about uh, starting your transition to pro league. What's on the horizon for you this year? What events can we
Oh yeah.
expect to see you at?
Um. So this year, I mean, nothing really in the books. I think my first event is actually I start casting for the year tomorrow. Um. And I'm right back with tomorrow with Frost Fire. So Frost and Fire, I believe is what it's called. So we're gonna be starting. I'm gonna be kicking it in South America, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back into the saddle. It's been a slow off season. I think as good as it was to see the major end off the year, it kind of sucks as like a tier two commentator, because then you are done, and like I was done in pretty much uh late November, I guess, was kind of when things slowed down. So when the RMRs start, right? Now there's no more RMRs, so it's maybe uh a little less long there in that department. But um yeah, I'm nothing in the book so far for like any big events that I can announce, but uh they should be looking forward to another exciting year, and everything again is going to kick off tomorrow.
Make sure you tune in to Frost and Fire. Of course, by the time I edit this and release it to YouTube, Frost and Fire will be well over and done, and you'll be on to the next thing. But okay, so this leads me to my next question. Back to Counter Strike here after the VRS. Um, which how do you feel about uh China as a region like stepping forward from this last major, and what other underdeveloped regions would you like to kind of see start to get some growth opportunities?
I mean, as someone who's like casted a lot of like really good IGLs from South Africa, I would like to see a little bit more. I mean, those guys, if you're talking about JT and Mistum in particular, like I just know those guys are just massive, massive hustlers. Like those guys work hard as can be. I was kind of sad to see Mistum kind of go separate ways with NIP. Maybe not separate ways. I wonder. I'm actually going to check if he's back to the academy. He might be. I'm not sure. Either way, I've watched, JT, who I think in complexity has constantly innovated, developed, and in CS2 is benefited big time from the game switch, and just looks like so much better mechanically. So. I would like to see South Africa. I mean, obviously they're far, far, far from a major like opportunity, but I just as a guy that likes NA Counter Strike, we've really benefited from some great South African IGLs. If you talk about ATK back in the day, that I was casting them, it was Mistum, and then before that it was JT with ATK. So it's pretty cool to see the work that those guys put in. Traveling all around the world, probably spending very very long periods of time away from family. So I'd like to see that, but obviously they kind of have to have a little bit more developing success before you see that.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you know who RTX is, the guy who puts on the off-season shenanigans league between ESEA seasons for the last
Yeah,
year, but he's from South Africa, so I imagine he'll be very excited to hear you say that.
nice. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I got a lot of love for Mistum watching him. I know that guy works hard. I was excited to see him in an IP. Obviously, didn't work out long term, but I
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, is it Fuzi on Wildcard that's from South Africa as well?
think he's Swedish.
Okay, not Fuzi.
Oh, Sonic. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sonic is. I knew there was a South African
yeah,
player,
yeah.
so
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Sonic. I thought Sonic was gonna retire and never come back to Counter Strike. Honestly, he was talking about joining Davenport. I bring this up a lot when I cast him, but I knew from one of my friends that's with Davenport that he was considering going there for school to play, and I was like, okay, that's like the final nail in the coffin of his career, especially after like that period with Cloud9, but or rather Extra Salt, I believe, but um watching him become such a great like player individually and kind of reviving his career was really cool because I wasn't sure about the pickup from Wildcard, and obviously I was massively mistaken in that. That guy's also another hustler.
he certainly is. Yeah, he made his way all the way to a major, and then I, yeah, we all saw what happened on Twitter
Yeah.
during the major. We don't need to we don't need to bring up too much drama or
Yeah,
anything, but
yeah.
wild stuff either way. Okay, getting
Shout out
back
to
to the
Amaranth's
major.
team.
Yeah, shout out to Amaranth's team. Exactly. Uh, how did you feel? So how did you feel about this major? I don't know how much Chinese Counter Strike you've watched, but like I've watched this very slow growth from them over the last 10 years. How did it feel? How do you feel like China is actually going to be stepping onto the world stage in Counter Strike now after this last major, or do you still think there's some growth left there?
I don't know. I think we're gonna see some consistent Mongolian teams more than anything, to be honest with you. I think that's where we're gonna see a huge growth. What I've heard about the Mongols and their like Counter Strike scene is they're very heavy into like LAN cafes, and like that's a great foundation to build people that live Counter Strike. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest benefits for uh, that scene is like the LAN cafe environment that so many of these Mongols players were. The fact that you've got older brothers teaching younger brothers to play Counter Strike and to stay into the scene and build more generations of great CS players is probably the biggest key. I don't know if we're going to see any more like great teams. It's tough to imagine that we'll see great teams consistently develop out of China because I think a large part of it has to do with like, okay, is this team succeeding? Do we have a team that we can really cheer for? And to be honest, wasn't really the case at the the major, right? We saw what was it, Rare Atom? Were they there? I believe.
Yep. They screwed
Yeah,
everybody's
yeah, and
pick'ems because they went one
yeah,
and three instead of 0-3.
and it was cool to see him get a win. Right, like that was a pretty fun win for them. I think a big deal for those guys, and then obviously, like, you would have liked to see them maybe make, like, a bit of a run. Playoffs would have been probably way too far out of the picture, but, um, even with that team, like, I feel like, you still have, uh, a lot of growing to do in terms of what you can, like, peak at for this roster, so, uh, I don't know if we'll see any development, like, off the back of that major, um whereas, like, if you look at maybe like the Boston major, I think a lot of people really got into NA Counter Strike because of that major. There's a lot more like younger players that were like, "Oh, I got to check this game out from NA." I think regional success has a lot to do, like, at the pro level with, like, lower level pro aspirations, so, um, I think the Mongols are probably gonna see that, the Mongolian scene is gonna see an uptick, but that might be about all.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting you say that about the Boston major. Maybe now that maybe that inspired a young generation of counter strikers, and now
Yeah.
here we are 7 years later, and maybe 2025 is North America's year. You never know.
Yeah, yeah, gotta give us some time, but I do think, like, watching that major run I mean, it got me back into watching Counter-Strike 'cause I didn't play it when I immediately, uh, kind of got back. I was, traveling at the time, and I got back, was watching the major, on my phone during that time, and, um, when I got back, I immediately started building up a computer again, got a little bit into CS, and started watching again after that point, so it definitely got me back into, like, the interest of the scene, but, yeah, I think if you ask a lot of, like, younger players that were kind of into Counter-Strike at the time, what really inspired them, I'd imagine watching that major got them into it, and obviously, I think Valorant took a big base of that player hit, but no question, I think, if you're looking at, like, roster success and, regional success, if your region is on top, you're gonna see a lot of players trying to emulate that success, like, look at the CIS region, Russian, Ukrainian scene, like, th those guys all play really good Counter-Strike, they're just constantly producing talent, and, they've had some of the best players for the longest time, so
North America will have its chance. I'm imagining. I don't know if you're familiar with the story of like hockey at the Olympics back in the day, but USA toppled Russia in to win gold in the Olympics back in the day, and I think North America is going to have that moment with Counter Strike and EU soon enough. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're in it we if you're an NA fan of if you're a fan of NA Counter-Strike, this year, 2025, we're looking at revived events, we're looking at prize pools, we're seeing Frag come back with multiple big lands throughout the entire US. I just think there's a lot to be excited about, and as I said, talking about, like, the success and the culture that you have to build as a region, you have to be making sure that players are getting to LAN, they're playing good Counter-Strike on LAN, they're dedicated, because if you look at every player that's come up, they've all been coming to LAN, they've all been playing, producing results, and, like, showing that dedication, so I think that's a very key detail here is that these teams are, putting in that work, and I think that there's so much more opportunity now to do that in 2025 than there ever was in the last 5 years that I've seen so far.
yeah, I agree. I saw a lot of several frag events happening last year in 2024, and yeah, just seeing what they've got lined up for 2025, I'm super excited for it. Do you think that, well, how much experience do you have with Frag specifically, like in NA? Was Frag 18 your first time playing on LAN or working with
Uh,
them, or what's kind of the
Actually, I
history for you?
I I first ever played on LAN at TAP. I was subbing for one of my friends' team. Um, they were in Maine, and it was a lot of fun. One of their players couldn't show up. I live in Philly, so it was a pretty easy call. Just to say, hey, do you want to come play with us? Said sure, absolutely. I'll have some fun. Help out in cast afterwards. Um, but did really well. I just feel like I've never played LAN before that. I'm decent at the game. I'm not incredible, but I'm okay. And I was doing well versus advanced teams. Nothing crazy, but we almost won a best of three. We took a map off of some advanced team. So from that point, I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. I like the competitiveness. Then I got the message about KC, which I was already going to play in though, and then that kind of took place as well. Had a free place to stay, which was awesome. Um, and then played there. But yeah, I think. Sorry, what was the question originally?
Oh
I totally
shit.
blanked on this.
What's it, well, you've effectively answered it. What's your history with Frag?
Oh, with Frag. Do you want to as like a caster or as someone playing?
Um, Well, I think you've answered for, as a player. Yeah. What have you done as a like? When have you gotten to cast for them? Was the arena event there the first time you've casted with them?
I've casted with them quite a bit. I've started my first land with them was I think 2021 in the summertime, maybe fall, and I did frag 15, which for that I pretty much flew out. Um, This is when they were still with NSG. I flew out. I stayed with a couple of people that I had casted. This was a team that was at the time that I started casting them was bottom of advance, but I just kind of grew up with them. At that point, they had made it to ECL. One of my good buddies, Polo, he's a good content creator. He's on Twitch, so I was friends with him at the time, and I was like, "Hey, can I like stay on your couch and I'll pay for a part of the Airbnb?" And he was like, "Sure, like absolutely." So I just ended up staying on the couch. I showed up to land not really expecting to cast. I had no idea what the situation was. I was just there, right? Just show up. Um, and I get a message from Bach in the morning, and he was like, "Hey, someone didn't make it. Someone wasn't available. Can you cast?" And I was already at the venue at the time, so I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, whenever you need me." And that was the only message. I never got a response from Bach after that. It was just like, "Can you cast today?" I said yes. I didn't know what time I was going to cast, didn't know any of the details. Just that message out of the blue. So I show up in like a big T-shirt with a brand on it because I thought that I wasn't going to cast, and that's kind of a little bit of a no-no when it comes to sponsorships, but I was like, I didn't know. uh, so I remember getting in some trouble for that, but that was pretty much the first time I started casting with frag on LAN. Was frag 15, I believe. And then from that point forward, they actually hired me before the event started, to go and cast. Fortunately for 16 and 17, so obviously like nice opportunities there. I'd worked a lot of qualifiers with Frag before that, so I'd kind of already had some connection. But all of that was online, so that's kind of my history with Frag.
Frag is definitely the glue holding the North American region together right now, if you ask me, because other than Launders Land, which is just getting started, and as you may or may not know, definitely had a bit of a
Got
sad
some
time at
hiccups.
Launder. Yeah, some hiccups at Launders Land too. There's
Yeah,
no blame to be placed there. I feel terrible for everybody involved on that whole thing, but
yeah,
it at least, yeah, those we learn from our mistakes, right? Launders Land 3 going to be better than ever.
yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, I feel like if you're looking at like in events that are in the early development, you're gonna have some bumps in the road. I think it's a massive shame for some of the teams out there, but I do think it's a growth opportunity for the whole crew there at Launders Land, and then they can come back better for Launders Land 3, which I'm hoping to see.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, like I said, it's a blameless situation, but okay. I do have one or two more questions for you. What my first of these last two questions, and then we'll wrap it up because we like to keep these around the length of one pug, because I feel
Okay.
like that's what Counter Strikers have the attention span for. Um, what what are some of the upcoming names in the Actually, I have three questions here. What are some of the upcoming names in North America, either orgs, players, tournaments, even? What are some of the names in North America right now that have got your eye and that you think are really helping to elevate the scene if they continue doing what they're doing?
So obviously I don't really cast a lot of advance anymore, so it's tough to talk about like up and coming names in like that department. But if I'm talking like really good, maybe lesser known ECL players, I think biasly I'll say Cryptic, who I'm really excited to see work in Nouns. Like this is his first opportunity to get paid a serious salary. Um, so talking about like stability when it comes to Counter Strike income, but we've seen his like work before, right? We've seen what he's been able to do qualifying multiple teams to the RMRs in the past, giving themselves multiple chances at majors. Um, so if you're looking at like the development of this player, like this is going to be where he can put full focus forward on Counter Strike, but also have that extra security of actually making money. That's going to be something really interesting to follow. And I just know like even before he was making money and getting paid a salary, he was still putting crazy amounts of work in, and I think that's only going to continue to develop. He's got this serious drive that you can tell is going to get him places. It's going to take him to where he needs to go to succeed. So I'm really excited for him on Nouns, and then Peeping as well, who I've been watching. This guy obviously like has been playing for Timberman for quite some time, but took a stint on PA for a little bit, changed up some roles, and got a little bit more love with the team. And then he has just consistently been put into positions to succeed, has developed his skill set, shows that he can play in multiple different positions and be really good. And with the support that Nouns now give him, if you're talking about a player like Rush to play alongside, who's just such a great support structure. I think he's going to be incredible. So I'm very looking forward to how Nouns come out of this kind of off season, kind of revitalized and finally making some shakeups that I think are worth it and very valuable in terms of raising their ceiling.
I like that. And guess what? That means I have a fourth question, actually. So we're just going to keep it rolling
We're going
here.
into OT then
We're,
in
we're
this
going
puck.
into OT here. Exactly. So bear with us, folks.
That's totally okay.
Um, so with the noun stuff, I don't know if you've seen how the nouns like proposals are going right now, and like the so I'll right currently right now as we're speaking, it might have closed now, but in the last day or two, nouns. I don't know if you know how the like Nouns DAO Foundation works or
Kind of
anything
have
like
an
that.
idea. Like
Yeah,
they
same kind
vote
of have
on
an idea.
funding.
I might be talking out of my ass here, so somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong. But they have to like vote on proposals right now. Nouns is not looking like they're gonna get like support from the Nouns organization specifically right now. But they've built a killer roster and they've got Adren with tons of experience as their coach. What do you think happens when a team like that loses the funding for their roster? Do you think it's fairly quick for them to find somebody else that wants to scoop up that nasty of a roster, or do you see it like potentially falling apart?
Yeah, I mean, I think that roster is again a dunk for any organization. If you look at some of the TOs, like or sorry, some of the orgs that are interested in getting into the space, like TSM just dipped their toes back in to the NA scene. So if Nouns ends up heading a different direction, which would be a shame because they had worked so hard, they had put so much investment into this opportunity. Um, it'd be kind of a shame to see him quit while I think it's like you're digging for those diamonds and they're right there. I feel like with this roster, you've finally made changes to this team, and I think you're just so close to hitting it big. With what they are hoping for is a major run. Um, so it'd be a bit of a shame to see him finally part and then for this team to succeed. I don't think as long as all the players are very committed, if we're talking about like everyone sticking with their roster, Adren staying by, I think this team won't be all that affected motivation wise. It'll obviously hurt them for like income and consistency, but if they're willing to ride it out until they can actually try and qualify or maybe look for another org, this team's going to be just fine. Because as I highlighted, Cryptic's never been salaried before, never been given real money to play the game. So it's not like, well, it might be a bit of a disappointment for him. You got your IGL that's stepping into this one saying, I'm still going to put the same amount of hours I did, whether it's getting paid 5,000 or nothing, right? So I think that's a good sign. But I hope that for Noun's sake that they again, are able to reconsider. But I didn't know that. That's unbelievable considering the situation they're in.
It is really sad because, like you said, they really in these last couple of weeks during the off season really put the pieces in place. It feels like
Yeah,
to
if
do
you're
so.
willing to do that, like you'd think if you're getting all these roster changes, I mean, the players that they picked up were from unsigned organizations, so it's free, but still, be a surprise.
Yeah. Well, we hope for the best for Nouns. We hope the roster sticks
Yeah,
together. We think it's a nasty roster, no doubt. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the story of NA, isn't it? It's really hard for orgs to want to stay involved, especially I think for somebody like Nouns, where through 24 they were always like the third or fourth place team at everything that they did, right? Where they're providing a lot of competition, but they're not quite making it past that mark.
yeah.
So yeah, I would love to see them stick around, but who knows? We'll go check on the Nouns proposal after all this and have a good cry together over it. Uh, okay. So I forgot my second to last question. It is gonna be. I didn't forget my last question. My last question here for you is this. This really opens up. Take your time, or don't. Whatever you want to do. Um, what kind of advice? And you've given plenty of advice here in general about your casting and work ethic. But what kind of advice would you give to um, not just a young Counter Strike player, but like a young esports person that is interested either in becoming a professional player or becoming a caster or talent or getting involved in production of any kind? What kind of advice do you have for like the next generation that you wish you would have heard when you were younger and getting started?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start with something that I kind of struggle with, and that's like ask for things, ask for help, ask for, jobs, whatever it takes really to get you there. You've got to, squeak a little bit to get the oil, right? So, making sure that you're able to kind of put yourself in a position to say, hey, like I need this opportunity or I want this opportunity. Um, Asking people that are at a higher level, like mentors or anything like that, is always a really big deal. So learning from people that are ahead of you that can offer you really valuable advice, I think, is a massive deal in this industry. Not only can it like set you up well with opportunities and create connections that I said are very key in the industry, but also it can give you a lot of like lessons about the career. You can put yourself in the shoes of someone that's been doing it for a lot longer than you and learn from that, kind of grow in that, and then uh, set yourself up for success a little bit later down the line. So uh, I would say for sure look for some sort of like mentor, look for someone to kind of teach you. It doesn't have to be like a one person, right? You can learn from a lot of different people, but I think learning from people that are ahead of you and that you aspire to be like is definitely my biggest piece of advice.
I think that's beautiful. That's a nice wrap up to this whole thing. And do you have let's ask a bonus question here. How do you feel about the state of Counter Strike 2 right now yeah, compared to when it first came out? It's been 2 years now since it first went into
Wow.
beta. Yeah, a little wild. But
I like
how do
it.
you feel about its current state?
I really enjoy playing at like a competitive level. It feels really good when I'm playing like main. I feel like I'm in some of the best like CS shape I've ever been in. Where it's just like I'm playing good Counter Strike. Everything feels like it's hitting, it's connecting. Um, and then LAN, what I've just recently played for the first time, is incredibly fun. I feel like I'm even better on LAN. So like that's obviously like a really good feeling. So I think Counter Strike's in a great shape. I still hope that some of the like small details get fixed. I feel like I'm still like struggling to jump sometimes, which is it's a small complaint, but it can cost you a little bit here and there. Um,
It's
so
not
like
like
some
it
of those small
was.
bugs. Yeah, it's better and they've improved. So that's all I can really ask for is that they continue to develop and improve. So I really enjoy playing CS2, to be honest with you. So I'm hoping they just keep on doing what they're doing.
I like that. All right, well, Cole, thanks for joining us. That's been Laying It Down with Big D and Cole McHenry. Xner McHenry. Goodbye.